we think? How do we actually perform? And how do we actually control our environment when we have to deal with change? So there are three key perspectives that I'd like you to look at today. The first one is from a self-leadership perspective. The second one is from how do you influence and connect with others? And the third one is think about your end users that use a lot of your technology and what they need to do to adapt to change and using new technology in their environment. So let's have a look at some of the impacts of dealing with change. So how many of you know of Dan Pink, who is an organisation psychologist, neuroscientist? We've got a couple of hands. So Dan talks about that there is a big disconnect between what we know about science and what business does. And when I talk about that, I mean it in the context of it's becoming challenging to do today's job with yesterday's methods and still be in business tomorrow. Harvard did a research on looking at businesses in the year 2000, and only 50% of them are still here today. So what are some of the pressures that we are facing day to day? We're overloaded with information. We've got these huge task lists that we have to do each day, and we are not sometimes seeing the opportunity to be able to innovate and enable because we're so busy doing so many things. So today I want to take you on a journey to learn about your brain, thinking from your side of things, how can I do things differently? If you could take 1 to 3 core things away from today, I know I've done my job from today. Okay, so technology advances. So we have come a long way from a neuroscience perspective. We know more about the brain now in the last 10 years than what we did 400 years ago. And that is through the technology of fMRIs and EEG scans. How does our brain perform under stress when we're dealing with change? How do we transition from where we are today and create new habits that are going to sustain us for success?
I really enjoyed Vannessa's talk. I learned some things that I would take away myself, but for my clients, one of the key things that I think was interesting was around habits, that our brain is driven by habits, and I think that the amount of emails that we get in work nowadays is pretty overwhelming, and this idea that we can change that habit through new technology is really kind of a key connecting point that I got out of today's talk.
Yeah, the key takeaway was how the brain functions during stressful situation, what sort of stuff is going on in the back end of your brains. I mean, really interesting to see there are actually 3 parts of the brain and how they actually, there's the influence factor and stuff, and really gets me to understand how I can manage the stress more effectively with this neuroscience stuff that Vannessa presented.
I really found Vannessa's presentation really insightful and engaging. The key takeout for me is really what I can do to make sure that my brain is optimised for its reward state. So just changing little things like making sure that I spend time in the morning planning and thinking rather doing all the important stuff at the end of the day.